Charlie here from Everyday Superhumans. The Austin Film Festival, which is also a nonprofit, asked us to help them out on their crowdfunding campaign. They are raising money for their 8th season of On Story, which shares about the power of storytelling with audience around the world. And you can actually find it in different formats, including our favorite podcast. You can help fund their campaign at www.seedandspark.com/fund/onstory. So that's again, www.seedandspark.com/fund/onstory. Anyways, let's go to the episode. Welcome to Everyday Superhumans, the podcast to restore your faith in humanity. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Kyle.
And we are talking about one of my favorite topics.
And that is dogs, right?
Yeah, no. But it's a topic that I have a degree in. And
Dogology?
No, I sounded like a question mark. I have a degree in it.
Okay, what is it?
Well, we're talking about film.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I remember this interview now. It was just like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Actually, it's 2 days ago from this recording session, so it wasn't like yesterday.
Might have been the quickest turnaround in history.
In history ever. No podcast has turned around a podcast this quickly before.
That's right. Oh, well.
It's actually a really special one because we were asked by the Austin Film Festival to record an episode to help them promote their charity campaign, which you may have heard in the opening clip.
And we were able to talk to Barbara Morgan, who is the executive director and co-founder of the Austin Film Festival.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that's really unique, though, about the Austin Film Fest is that they focus a lot on the writing aspect of film, which, as we were saying before we started recording, you described it as like the middle child of film. Yeah. Nobody really knows who these famous writers are. We know the directors, we know the actors, but we don't know who the writers are.
It's crazy, too. And I liked how she categorized it in different aspects. So she went into TV shows, how the writer is the golden boy of a TV show. But then in film, it's the middle child.
Yeah.
And then in playwriting, it's all or nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a really eye-opening experience to me as somebody without a film degree and just a casual moviegoer. I had a really... it was like a crash course into the film industry this time. Also, I was also impressed with how many things that the Film Fest does.
Yeah.
Their name's kind of misleading. They are a film fest. They start out as a film fest, but they also have a bunch of other programs like summer camps for kids that want to get into film and film writing, a conference to celebrate the writers that happens at the same time as the Film Fest.
They have a podcast.
And a TV show. They both come with the same name. They're called On Story. They are a show about the behind-the-scenes, mostly writing side of film.
And they have a 25-year vault.
Mm-hmm. All their archives are online for everything in the conference and also On Story, which is a public access show. So it's basically a nonprofit TV show.
Also, they have a film and screenwriting competition, too. And the competition and festival is going on in October 25th to November 1st. So this episode is jam-packed with all my favorite things. And I was just mouth wide open throughout the whole entire thing, just being like, I wanted to go and produce movies and go on stage and everything.
As somebody who's been wanting to do a fictional podcast for a while, I'm like, damn, I gotta go to this conference and learn how to write a script.
Yeah, the inner Steven Spielberg just popped up into me again.
All right, we're gonna go reconsider our careers and get back with you at the end of the episode.
My name is Barbara Morgan. I'm the executive director of the Austin Film Festival. I'm the co-founder. 25 years ago, we did our first festival. And it was always a writers' festival, which was in the film festival world a very unique thing. Nobody had ever done one before for writers. And we were just lucky because Austin had a film community, a pretty strong film community already back then. But where it had incredible strength was in the writing world. Screenwriters, there were a lot of screenwriters who lived here and had for a long time. And the reason that you really see people like Robert Rodriguez and
Mike Judge and all of
Mike Judge and all those guys here is because there was a whole generation before them of screenwriters who managed to live and work out of Austin instead of LA. People like Bill Whitliff and Bud Shrake, Bill Broyles, who started Texas Monthly. I mean, a lot of guys who had film and television backgrounds. Bill Whitliff wrote and produced Lonesome Dove. Toby Hooper, of course, did Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And so these guys all actually were here in Austin. And you could do that. You could be a writer and live here and just fly back and forth to LA.
Yeah. What's the draw of Austin compared to just like living in LA? Just lower stress here? Is it easier to write? Or what is it?
You can live in Austin and do what the hell you want. You don't have to deal with the day-to-day industry BS, and as a writer, if you're an actor, you have to be in front of people's faces, and you really can't do that. If you're a director, you really have to be in front of people's faces for the most part. So it's a lot harder to be a director here. There certainly are a few of them for sure. If you worked in TV, you couldn't do that because you had a writer's room. But now in a remote world, it's a very different story. I mean, Noah Hawley, who created Legion and Fargo, the TV series, actually lived here for a while and was going back and forth and doing it remotely. And so there are opportunities here. It's a little harder in TV, but there's a lot of opportunities here to do that. And obviously Robert Rodriguez and Mike Judge and Linklater, they've all been able to do it. So I mean, it's changed, but as a writer, you could do it because you didn't have to be in front of. You got hired to do a job, and you didn't have to be in front of somebody's face all the time. You could sit in your room and write your script, turn it in, and then go there to deal with notes and changes or be on set.
I bet Austin was a little oasis in the Hollywood fast life.
Yeah, that's how those people all described it to me back then. And they were fellows. So it was, mostly men, but they all had a similar story that way. And they could, also a lot of them, especially as writers, came out of the journalism world, and they were doing that here anyway. Bud wrote for Sports Illustrated, and Bill Broyles had Texas Monthly. Bill Whitliff had a Encino Press, so he published books. He had published Larry McMurtry and a bunch of other, really great people. And so, he had that background too. So it was just, you could get away with a lot of stuff here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said that the film fest is more writer focused than like production focused. Is it just because the community is so large here, or are they kind of underappreciated in the industry?
Well, somebody actually, when it got published in the paper that we were going to do this festival, there wasn't another film festival in Austin that was for just the general public. The only actual film festival that was here was a genre fest. It was the Gay and Lesbian Festival, and that was all that was in Austin at the time. And they had a really solid market, but there wasn't just anything that was showing Hollywood films and so we decided we were going to do that, and it got published in the Statesman, and then we had no choice but to do that. And so then, sort of blessings and curses at the same time. And we had somebody call us and say, hey, I'm involved in film. His name was Fred Miller, and he said, I think, there's a lot of screenwriters here in town, and maybe you should think about that, which was brilliant, right? And as it turned out, I knew a couple of those people just from my other life. And so it was kind of this focused idea that we had background for here, and people like Bill Whitliff and Bill Broyles, Bill Broyles also wrote Apollo 13 and with Al Reinert, and they lived here. They associated with Texas Monthly. So we had already these people that we knew, and when we said, hey, we're going to do this, they said, sure, we'll help you. And of course, they knew a lot of really integral people in LA in that world. And so right away, we got the support of the Writers Guild in Los Angeles, and the Academy of Motion Pictures was actually being run by one of the most infamous screenwriters, Frank Pearson, who gave us Dog Day Afternoon and really great films. And he was amazed that somebody cared enough to do something about screenwriters because nobody had before. So we got a lot of support immediately. We were very lucky, and that was a good idea to do that. And then the other thing is, because we were about writers, we did not do any VIP stuff. So we had no places where people could go to get away from our registrants. And we started a competition as part of it. And that first year we got 2,400 films in, or screenplays, sorry.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a lot of films.
2,400 screenplays. Well, now we get like 6,000 films, but we got like 2,400 scripts that first year. And we, we're like, whoa. The support of the industry was really great. Especially the Academy and the Writers Guild.
How many films do you have during the first year?
We didn't actually have a competition for films in the first year. We started that year too. So we really had to work hard to get films that first year. Studios didn't. They were like, who are you? Who's your audience? We don't know you're going to fill these films. So it was very hard getting that. But we did, like the first year we had Robert Towne here, and he was famous for Chinatown. Okay. And so that was huge to have him. We had 5 Academy Award winning screenwriters here, and they all presented stuff at the Paramount Theater. And so nobody had invited writers to speak. They weren't used to being invited anywhere. I can't tell you how many writers had never even been invited to their film premieres of movies they wrote. It's just the writer.
What the hell happens?
He's the stepchild.
They're the most important.
They're the DNA
without them, there wouldn't be anything to perform.
Right. And everybody should feel that way. And that's why we exist.
They literally wrote the DNA for the movie.
That's right. That's exactly it. The thing too is writers really do give back. They care. They have a lot of empathy for people trying to break in like them because it was so hard, and it's an emotional experience. And so a lot of them just come in on their own, and they just get up there and do the panels, and they share it, and I feel like they get a lot of satisfaction out of that too. And the other really cool thing, and this is what we found out in year one, the biggest problem we had that first year was everybody wanted to change their reservations going back because they wanted to stay for these people's panels of people they had never met before, even though they had all written in the same town, big Academy Award winning stuff, part of the Writers Guild. They had never met each other, and they loved each other's work, and they wanted to sit in on someone else's panel. And so now what happens is they call it summer camp for writers, and they come in and they just want to hang out with these guys that are their competitors in the industry, but they love the craft of someone else and they want to hang out with them. And so we've gotten very lucky, and they're just people who are just like us, and they just appreciate each other's work. And because it's a craft, everybody else on a film is together making the film. The writer's alone. And he doesn't get to be part of that process often.
Do the writers typically just sell their script and then let it go? They don't go on set?
Or get rewritten, like somebody else comes in and does it, or not so much in television, but in film for sure. And so, and I remember at a panel one time, a couple of guys up there together, some of whom had rewritten each other. And they, I remember one of them saying, had I met you, I might not have rewritten you. And it was just, that may not always happen, but I just thought it was a really interesting thing. It was like, well,
I feel like that has to be really hard to be a writer, spending weeks, months working on a script, and then you sell it to a studio, and when the movie comes out 3 years later, it's completely different than the story that you wrote.
Yeah,
I feel like that would be super hard to take.
It is, and sometimes it happens with people with their original ideas, which is really heartbreaking. You have to let go. I mean, the process of letting go, if you're a writer in the world of film, is huge. And if you can't let go, it's a very hard job for you. And they talk a lot about that. In TV, less so, but in because you got a writer's room, but in film, you may be hired to adapt a book, and then it may go to somebody else, but it's always going to go to a director who is going to envision it their way. Sometimes better, sometimes just different. Sometimes, and sometimes, and then you have those examples of the Flintstones movie where there were 32 screenwriters. And so how do you even know whose part was what?
At that point.
Yeah, exactly. It's
ridiculous.
And that movie was like Telephone. At the end of it, it was like, what did we just see? This is terrible,
I just watched a documentary recently, or documentary, it's like a YouTube video on the infamous Super Mario Brothers movie that was made in 1992.
Yes,
that went through so many writers too, 10, 12 different writers.
I don't think people realize how magical this really is, and it really is like unicorns, that when you have a movie written by one person and directed by somebody else and it turns out to be, magnificent, how that, magic was that somebody with a sensibility interpreted that writer's work in a way that was great. That's just incredible. That doesn't happen very often. But in TV, the writer is the creator usually, or part of the writer's room. And they're everything. They run the show. The director, you don't even know directors' names in TV for the most part. You know them in film. You know, so it's sort of the Sadie Hawkins version of film. You know, everything's opposite. And so in that world, it's really interesting. Now you hear them talk to each other. And when the digital and cable world exploded, a lot of film writers went to TV. And
is that why we have such high quality TV now?
Yeah, there's
because TV. I watch more TV shows and movies now just because I feel like that they're like less pandering and more so like they're also longer, so you like tell like a more like in depth story over the course of like 10 episodes or more.
There's definitely less Marvel comics in TV.
That's true. Although there are Marvel TV shows.
There are, but only a couple.
Yeah.
So.
I'm going to see Avengers tomorrow. So.
Yeah, I'm seeing it Monday. I don't mean to diss it. We're definitely already got the tickets. So.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I'll probably see it too, actually.
Yeah. I mean, how do you not? Even if you don't love it, it's just amazing to see how many people are up there.
As many
biggest A-listing cast ever.
And how they incorporate all of the heroes into one script and that they spotlight each of them in appropriate amount of time. Like, how do you even do that?
Yeah, I'm so happy to see they pull this off.
They do have great writers in that world now. And, you know, the way they develop that world is kind of like the way Disney was developing their writer crews, you know. So they really work a long, hard time. Like Guardians of the Galaxy, that was developed for years out of a team of writers that literally just work for them like the old studio system almost, you know, that they're working on it for a long time as opposed to, oh, here, go write this. So they have different process of doing that, and it's clearly working for them. The woman who wrote Guardians of the Galaxy is somebody that's come in here a number of times, and she's phenomenal, and she started literally very young working there where they told her to pick your comic book, and that was cool.
That is cool. Yeah, one thing, I mean, I don't want to get into too many tangents about Marvel, but I read something recently that like Marvel gives a lot of freedom to their creators within it, as long as they're consistent within the universe. Right. They let them do what they want. So that's like one of the good things with the Marvel movies is that they let creative freedom happen. But I think we should get back to the film first.
Yeah. So you give away 300 scholarships to high school students in order to attend the film festival and the conference?
We do. We've been doing that since our first year, not 300 the first year, but I think we gave away like 20 the first year. But yeah, we've probably for the last 15 years, we've been doing about 300 each year. And it's mostly to high schools in AISD, although there are some other schools that are part of it. We have a writing program at a couple of schools in Austin in high schools, and it's in the English department. We don't work in the film department at those high schools, and a lot of schools have a film department because our interest is in communication. We're not trying to make filmmakers with those kids. We're trying to introduce them to another way to communicate. And when you write for film, you have to be thinking not about just what you're communicating in words, but what you're visually communicating, right? I mean, that's a really hard concept. Yeah. And so if you can teach them to do that, there's so many other ways they can apply that in life. And so that's how our program is set up. It's called digital storytelling. And so through that, we also then offer these to all these students because there's a lot of kids who think, oh, film's so cool. And they think it'll be easy, you know, because look, and it's such a grueling choice for a job.
I've heard a lot of complaints about the film industry, just like odd hours, long hours. You travel to like different countries a lot.
Thankless. People who don't appreciate you.
But the most passionate people, because you really have to love what you're doing.
Right. And that's what we try to impress the kids with while they're here, so they can go to the festival and attend all these panels and see. I mean, from the panel, like they get to go to films too. Their badges get them into that. But really what we want them to do is go to these panels and hear these people talk about what it's really like what the expectations are. You know, if you want to be a writer and you have grammatical mistakes on the first 3-5 pages of your script, they're not even going to bother to read it in the industry. They literally don't care. You have failed because you're not, the number of people who are trying to break in is so significant. They don't have to take you if you're substandard. So it's like, yes, pay attention in your English class. And so that's the kind of stuff where, you know, we want them to hear what it's like to work on a TV show, what it's like to work 60-hour weeks. You know, it's, you know, you think school's hard, wait till you pursue this, but it's also rewarding. These people are up there, these writers are up there passionately talking about why they pursued it and kept with it and the persistence that it takes. So we want them to hear that too, and not necessarily just to discourage them, but to also have them have a realistic look at it and decide, oh, maybe I just take this and I apply it to some other aspect, you know?
Not everyone gets a trophy. And not everyone gets an Oscar.
I don't think we should get me started on it.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go with that.
I have a kid in
Your
middle school.
parenting skills.
Yeah,
No.
that's right.
No.
Yeah, it's the life is hard lesson is lost out there.
That's just amazing that schools offer film, because when I was going to school, they didn't offer film.
I think my school district did. I'm from Frisco, Texas,
Yeah.
and we had this thing called the Career and Technology Education Center. And I think that we had like culinary classes, animation classes,
Yeah.
film classes, law classes there too.
That's Austin. Almost every high school in Austin has a film program
Doesn't
or a
surprise
media
me.
arts program, but they didn't like 10 years ago. Now they do. And that's one of the funny things at the festival. It's really cool because there's 6,000 or 7,000 people at just the conference alone. And those people are mostly adults, and this is their passion in writing, and they're trying to break in, and they see those kids running around and they all say the same thing. I mean, people will come up and say, this is so cool. I wish somebody had offered this to me when I was a kid, so I didn't wait till I was 30 something to try to realize my passion. And that it's really great seeing the kids in there because they also ask great questions,
They're not afraid.
No,
Kids
they're-
ask the most blunt questions.
yeah.
Yeah.
We had the writer for Creed here last year, and his panel was full of high school students, and he was so cool because he's not that old. He's probably only in his early 30s, and they just have had this incredible career, he and Ryan Coogler, and they were friends, and I think they went to USC, and they were friends at USC, and they were trying to figure out what kind of spec script they would write in college, and they had this idea to let's just rewrite Rocky. I was like, what? Why would you do that? That most people probably would have said that's a terrible idea, but it worked really well for them.
I haven't seen it, but I know it was like really good.
Really
Awesome film. It's so great.
Was that premiered here at the Film Fest?
No, we did a script to screen of it, though. He and I conversed about why they made the choices they made and how they basically had the guts to rewrite Rocky and why they thought to re-envision it and why they went after Sylvester Stallone to see if, instead of being insulted, if he would be part of it, which totally worked. I mean,
That's
everything they
awesome.
did was counterintuitive and it all worked.
Yeah.
And it was a great movie. So, but you should, that's an episode. That's an on-story episode, the interview of him, and he's great.
Yeah, let's get to that. On Story is like one reason why we're recording today is and releasing so soon. Like we never really have a turnaround this quickly for an episode is because you're doing a fundraising campaign for On Story, which is, as I understand, a PBS show and a podcast about writing, right?
So we have a TV show that's in our 8th season that's on PBS stations nationwide. We're on 90% of the PBS stations almost.
Nice.
And then we have a radio show that's also cut similarly that's on PRI. Both the TV and the radio show are here on KUT and KLRU. And then that's on like 20 stations on PRI. And then we have a podcast that now had like 1.5 million downloads or something like that, somewhere near there. And then we have a book series with UT Press.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So
And
it's always like a giant brand. It
yeah, and
sounds like
the third book is about to come out in
What else
October.
do you have?
Yeah, well, I mean, and then that whole archive of 20. So we've been taping the festival for 25 years. So all these people that have come in. Like when Bottle Rockets came out, we had Wes Anderson, Owen Wilson, and Luke Wilson here talking to Frank Pearson, this legendary writer at the Driscoll Hotel. And, like we have all this content that's in this archive, literally tens of thousands of panels, and they are in the archive at the Whitliff Collections at Texas State University. So we have done, we've taken this archive and we've turned it into TV, radio, podcast because everybody wants to know how to write. And so it's all in there and from these incredible people who've done it over the years. So we started turning it into KLRU humored us and put the show on the air, and then it got all this pickup. So we were very lucky. But that's why we're doing the crowdfunding. Money in public media, that's kind of an oxymoron. And so we have to fund the show. We've been funding it through the festival for a long time. And so now we're trying to fund it through this crowdfunding campaign. But it's really cool, too, because it's put us back in touch with our audience in a way that's pretty neat. I mean, that's a really positive aspect. And then another really positive aspect is because our people who've been on the show, our big panelists and stuff that have come for years, they've been really helpful, and a lot of them have given. And they've also then oh, hey, I have this new movie coming out, or oh, I'm about to do, and we're now looking at stuff we're going to be doing for this year's festival through reconnecting with some of those people again. That you have this huge network and you can't always communicate with them.
Yeah, so the thing that kind of surprised me at the Austin Film Fest is that when we initially reached out to you, I thought that you guys were just a 8-day long film fest. I know that you had so many different things to do. How did it go from just a small film fest to like being in like an industry?
I don't know. I think I have OCD in some way, and very focused. Where you start doing something, and you're working with so many incredibly creative people, and we have had an amazing staff over the years. And this is a town where people. Then after we started all of these there's so many film festivals in this town now. So you have to stay relevant. Part of that relevance, though, is just having so many events. Like this weekend alone, we have 3 events. And we're always doing something. We're doing something at Texas State University with one of the showrunners of Bob's Burgers, and he was a producer on King of the Hill.
Show.
Jim is amazing, and his collection is also from King of the Hill, is also at the Whitliff Collections. Wow. And so, we have an event today, a writer's write-off day that we're doing out at New Republic Studios. They're really amazing. If you've never been out there, go check it out. If you're a film person, it's pretty cool. And they're just out MLK all the way. Almost a fast drop. Keep going. Just keep going.
Just keep driving, you'll find it.
Keep going. And then when there's no more barbecue and no more, you're literally on a dirt road almost. But they are doing that event with us. And then Monday night we, have a screening. And so we constantly do events because you kind of have to, and also we do all these conversations now that we have the TV and radio show. And it's sort of, you have to just do stuff all the time. And it's exciting, it kind of keeps you going. Free time.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you have any free time?
No. We always like to ask our guests that.
Yeah, like how do you sleep? Do you ever sleep?
How do you manage your time?
No, I don't manage my day. Well, after this, then I have a 12-year-old, so there's plenty. There's just no. And the thing is, though, we do a lot of fun, interesting, exciting things, so it's fulfilling.
Keeps it fresh and fulfilling. Yeah.
Does she want to go into film too?
I don't know if she wants to. She now is taking photographs at all our events. She loves photography. And the Whitliff Collections that we're in has this amazing photography collection. And so she's been there. She literally was born 6 weeks before a festival. Oh. So I stuck her in a front pack, and she's been at every one of them since she was born. So for her, it's very exciting.
Second nature.
Yeah. She moves into the Driscoll like Eloise and attends all the stuff. And
Well, this is kind of like going back into the film festival, but some of the short films, they are eligible for Academy Award. How does that all work?
We've been working with the Academy literally since year one. They have been very kind to us. And we have a screenplay competition that I think we had 10,000 scripts last year. And the Nickel is the king of the screenplay competitions, and they're run by the Academy of Motion Pictures. In the very beginning, they helped us. Like I said, there was a screenwriter running the Academy at that point. And there was a guy named Greg Beal who went to UT who was running their Nickel Fellowship. And he was just so incredibly helpful. So we got lucky and they helped us. And ever since then, we've had this relationship with the Academy. Now we do a grant program. They grant and help us do this diversity program at the festival. So we do panels and have panelists come in that are part of that program. The last couple of years, we've been doing that with them. So the Academy, like I said, has been helping us since the beginning. And when we started adding film to it in year 2 with a competition, we applied to their program that is eligibility for short films, short documentaries, short narrative content, and short animation. And those 3 categories are actually part of the program that if you win here, juried winning, not audience award, but if you win the jury, you are shortlisted through the Academy. And so the film Heaven is a traffic jam on the 405 that won the documentary this year, won our competition. And he'd actually been turned down by a few festivals. And then we took him and he won everything. Wow. He literally won that year. He won the jury award, the audience award, and the Hiscox Courage Award. Wow. It's such an amazing short documentary. And when he won the Academy Award this year, it was like, wah! And we'd had a couple of films that were shortlisted, that were actually nominated before through the shortlist program. Another one that had won, I think 2 maybe that had won, called The Accountant by a really great writer named Ray McKinnon, and Walt Goggins also. They're both actors that wrote and produced. So we've, that's happened in the past, but it's really cool when it happens, that somebody that comes through the festival actually gets that.
You gave them the chance.
The festival definitely gives them that opportunity. Yeah. And so that's pretty cool.
My question on top of that then is like, what kind of influence has the film fest had on the film community as a whole then? Well, I think, at least the Austin community.
Yeah, I think I'd have to look at it in 2 ways. an odd film festival because we're about writers. So everything, including documentaries, has to have a narrative structure.
Okay.
So even our short documentaries and the feature documentaries we show, they're not verite. They're very much narrative. And it's about storytelling. And so in that sense, we're an opportunity for people who, in the film community as a whole out there in the world, an opportunity for people who don't necessarily have great filmmaking skills, that they aren't necessarily lit beautifully and set up, with this eye from a director, but they are very much storytelling vehicles. And so if it's a great story, we don't care. We really don't. I mean, your audience will forgive that. As soon as that heart moment happens where an audience member buys into the story you're telling, it doesn't matter how well you're lit. It really is, this is something, I'm totally emotionally involved with. And so that's how we look at it. So for the local community, we really encourage people we do a lot of things during the year, like these filmmaker roundtables and opportunities for people to meet other people who they may be more storyteller oriented, but not know how to dip their feet into it. They may not have gone to film school. Yeah. They may just be a person who feels like they're a storyteller and they feel like they have a great story for film. So we introduce them to people so that they can find the way to invent that wheel themselves. How do I get into this and do it? Oh, look, I went to this roundtable thing and I met a DP and I met a person who's a producer that could help me create a budget and somebody who could help me cast. So that's what we try to do. And so I feel that is very much a local program that we do all year long. We do a lot of script readings because that's our focus. And so somebody can submit a script and we'll look at it and decide, okay, we'll read this script. We'll cast it. We'll help them cast it. We have some venues that we use here that will take them up there and they can hear it being done, read before they actually are ready. That way they can go back and say, "Ooh, this didn't work," or "That joke wasn't funny to the audience," or you know what I mean? And then they'll go back and relook at it. So we try to help people workshop things and get ready to actually be prepared to shoot.
Okay, yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. And I bet that empowers them too. They have all that they need at their fingertips now with a conference and with a festival.
Yeah, we really try to do that. There's so many opportunities in Austin, too, because it's a very rich film community for other people to do that. But there's also a lot of filmmakers. As you know, it's really hard and expensive to live here. So we try now to, we really want to encourage filmmakers to stay, not to leave. And so we try to have as many opportunities that pretty much we're a nonprofit and almost all of our money goes right back into the Austin community. We are trying to encourage our local community, even though tourism is what drives the festival. Those people are coming in here spending their money mostly from LA, New York, other places where there's film center. And they come here to meet other people from LA and New York.
Yeah.
Because they can't meet them in LA and New York. So they fly all the way here. I mean, it's kind of a funny short documentary if you think about it, like a short animation, like get on the airplane, fly to Austin, meet all the people you can't meet in LA.
Yeah, they could be on the same flight and they don't even know it.
And they are. And then, they actually are.
And then they're like, oh.
And I can't tell you how many people meet at the airport or in our vans on the way back to the hotel from the airport. And they're like, oh. And I would never be able to meet you in Los Angeles.
So funny.
It is funny. It's a really, we are so this whole festival is so counterintuitive. It's like, what? But
it's like a giant conference room, but it's in Austin.
It's in Austin, that's right. But that's why we don't have any VIP places either, because they're all meeting each other in the bars. They're at the bars at the Driscoll or at the parties. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the best things you could do, I think, is have people of different walks of life interact with each other in a very open environment.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you stories about walking through the bar at the Driscoll when I'm running off to do an intro somewhere and seeing Oliver Stone talking to registrants at the bar, or the Coen brothers sitting in those chairs at the Driscoll with 20 people that are registrants surrounding them talking to them. Or it's amazing that's what it is, and we did that first year, not even thinking that that's what that meant. But we're not at Sundance, you cannot access those people.
Oh, really?
No. Good luck.
Is Austin Film Fest one of the very few without VIPs? Then?
Yeah, we are one of the very few.
So if you want.
So I mean, we have those people, and they're directly in the system. And they know, because the writers, they don't care. They're happy to talk to those people, and
everybody's equal then too, and they're more approachable.
Yeah,
I think that promotes the Austin way too. I think the Austin way is, I'm gonna actually walk up to you and talk to you.
Yeah, this town's always been very accepting that way. It's just nobody. It's really, I'd even say not so much accepting. It's just that nobody cares.
Like nobody, whatever.
They're all,
all you want.
Yeah, they're all doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Everybody's there's a very maverick spirit to this place.
Which I think is like the best kind of accepting in that way is that if it's just part of normal life, just like nobody cares. Like, oh yeah. Like, yeah, go ahead, do that.
Yeah.
As long as they aren't hurting anybody.
Yeah.
I don't
you do
care.
you.
And you leave me alone.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. Cool. Let's go, listen to music.
Yeah. Do you feel like that the rise in things like YouTube and podcasting could have increased like people's interest in screenwriting or film production?
It's funny. We did this huge thing on podcasting last year. We brought all these big podcasters in, fiction podcasters in to the festival with Limetown and Homecoming and all the a lot of big shows, Bright Sessions. We had people from all those places here, and because we launched our podcast competition last year, and they were all talking. And you know what almost all of them were? Filmmakers.
Yeah, I know that.
They were almost all of them, and they couldn't get satisfaction in that world because there were just so many people. So they just said, "I've got a script. I'm just going to make a podcast out of it. It doesn't take that much money." And so they did it, and now. And so they're all people who are now going the other way. Their podcasts are becoming TV shows or films or something else, or they've just continued on with more, which I think is really cool. To me, that's about as American as it gets. It's like, I figured out another way to get in, did it myself, and I don't need you, Hollywood. And now Hollywood comes knocking, and they're like, oh, sure. Yeah, we'll do it.
So before we sign off, do you have any word for aspiring filmmakers or writers out there?
Well, I think anybody who's a writer really needs to come to the festival and hear people talk. And you definitely need to download all the millions of scripts that are sitting on the internet and read them and look great scripts to see how people wrote them and the style they use, and to see that it really is its own art form that most people are completely unfamiliar with. The last thing would be just persistence. Don't give up. You just got to share your work and show it to people and take criticism, learn to take it and keep going and keep going and keep going, and then wait for that moment where you're in the right place at the right time.
And we always like to ask our signature question, since we're everyday superhumans. If you or the Austin Film Festival would be a superhero, what superhero would it be? And you can make up the superhero too. It doesn't have to be Spider-Man or Batman.
I don't know. I think our superhero would be one that probably doesn't yet exist in the Marvel or DC universe, and it could be anyone, almost amorphous, that was just a superhero whose mind and heart were truly connected, because I think that's what great writing really is.
Are you a film buff looking out for the next Citizen Kane? Are you an aspiring scriptwriter on the search for tips and tricks of the trade? Or are you just looking for a film fest to attend this October? Then look no further than austinfilmfestival.com to learn all about the film fest and their year-long events. They can also be found on facebook.com/austinfilmfestival and on Twitter and Instagram at austinfilmfest. If you're looking for behind-the-scenes interviews with some of Hollywood's most notable film writers, check out the On Story podcast and TV show at onstory.tv. For their podcast, subscribe to it with your favorite podcast player, or you can go to onstory.tv/podcast.
Looking for some good news to add to your life? We can help you with that. Restore your faith in humanity at everydaysuperhumans.com, where you can learn all about the people making the world a better place and find your calling. While you're there, check out our Find Your Cause quiz to find a nonprofit just right for you. You can also subscribe to our monthly newsletter to get a little dose of superhuman news and charity opportunities happening in Austin. And finally, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SuperhumansCast, like us on Facebook at facebook.com/everydaysuperhumans, and check out our Instagram at everydaysuperhumans.
Have we, Everyday Superhumans, helped restore your faith in humanity? Then be sure to rate and subscribe to Everyday Superhumans on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, or wherever you like to get your podcasts.
And remember, not every hero has to fly, so grab your cape and let's go.